Hello, thanks for joining us. They seem to come along about once in every generation, but when they do, you certainly know they're there. And in Australian football at the moment, there is only one Jacko.
Jostling, Jacko, Pickham won't like it, then he kicks and he does. Oh, great goal by Jackson. And Billy's on the ground, he can't believe it, and Jacko says, well, I'll join you down there.
Jacko, that story a little later. There is only one Jacko. But first to the very baffling story of a Queensland policeman who appears to be paying a penalty for being too good at his job. Detective Sergeant Ross Dickson has been described as Queensland's top crime buster. Sergeant Dickson, for the last 2.5 years, has headed the 4-man CIB team in the tiny North Queensland town of Mareeba. So you might think, how on earth can you be a top crime buster in Mareeba, which is just inland from Cairns? But the fact is that Mareeba happens to be the police base for an area which is approximately the size of Victoria. It's close to Southeast Asia. It has disused World War II airstrips. It has properties so large that the owners often haven't seen all of what they own. Accordingly, it's an area which has attracted drug growers, drug smugglers, drug dealers, and smugglers of illegal immigrants. Apart from the range of, and that, of course, is apart from the range of crimes any police groups expects to deal with. And in this vast area, Detective Sergeant Dickson's success rate, or clean-up rate, has been 84%. The Queensland average for the police force is 49%. But now, against his will, he's being transferred. The Police Minister, Mr Glasson, says it's simply a police administrative responsibility. That is hardly an adequate answer. Today I spoke with Sergeant Dickson in our Cairns studio. Sergeant Dickson, thanks for coming in. Why are you being transferred?
I don't know. Nobody will tell me.
You're dealing in an area where there's organised crime, drug dealing, drug smuggling, illegal immigration, bird smuggling. Is that correct?
Yes, unfortunately there's a lot of crime in the isolated areas in Queensland, and we are in an area where perhaps because of the climate and the situation and the isolation, it's a lot more prevalent.
So you have a high rate of crime, a high rate of clean-up, but you're being transferred. Seems to me that something is terribly wrong.
I say that myself, and I've been trying to find out what's been going on. I've been put under a lot of pressure all of this year. I put a report into the Commissioner, and I made sure it was hand-delivered to him, asking him if he knew what was going on.
Was there a reply?
Yes, I was transferred.
How do you read that?
Well, I don't read anything sinister into it. I said in the report to the Commissioner about the pressure that was being applied to us not to investigate major offences, that I suspected that we were perhaps too close to the executives of certain organised criminal activities, and that perhaps they thought we knew more than we did know.
Do you mean you were asked not to investigate certain alleged offences?
Yes, I was instructed on the 5th of April, under no circumstances were we to investigate any further drug matters at all at Mareeba.
How can you possibly explain that?
I can't explain it. It's an unlawful instruction, and I went straight away and typed a personal letter to the Commissioner telling him this, and telling him if he wanted me to obey this instruction, that I required that instruction in writing.
Well, let's just pause there, Sergeant Dickson, and cross to our Brisbane studio where we have Detective Sergeant John O'Gorman of the Queensland Police Union. Sergeant O'Gorman, can you understand that a policeman would be instructed not to further investigate alleged drug offences?
About the only explanation I could provide for it, Michael, would be because of the budget restrictions that have been placed on the Commissioner of Police in this state by Treasury officials, the Commissioner has had to issue instructions to his district inspectors, who have passed them down the line to their people in charge of various stations and squads. Because of the geographical location of Mareeba, the detectives in Mareeba must, by the nature of the work that's involved, the vast distances that have to be travelled, must incur quite an amount of overtime.
Well, if that's the explanation, isn't that an invitation to drug dealers to head straight for Mareeba? As long as they don't work 9 to 5, they can work with immunity.
We from the union have been trying to place this view before the government in this state for months.
Well, let's go back to Cairns and Sergeant Dickson. Sergeant Dickson, is it possible to do your job on a 9-to-5 basis?
No. If I make this appeal now to criminals, if they'll work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, I will. And if they promise not to rape or murder anybody during the weekends, well, I'll go away every weekend. Until they do that, I can't work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. Our job's a job, it's a 24-hour job. We don't know from 1 minute to the next what's going to happen. I could walk out of this studio now and there could be a bank robbery in progress. We have no way of anticipating what's going to happen. We just have to try to be prepared to have men available all of the time in case something serious happens. My main concern is that the people in Queensland are not getting the police protection they deserve, and I agree with what Mr O'Gorman says. Decisions are not made for the good of the public, they are made on a completely economic basis.
How heavy is drug dealing and smuggling in your vast area?
Well, I think we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg, and it's not just my area. It's the whole of North Queensland, and I'm good friends with most detectives and uniformed police in North Queensland, and to be quite truthful, we're at our wits' end. We're all trying to work in together. We're trying to stretch a thin blue line around an enormous area, and unfortunately there's a lot of gaps in it, and we're just doing the best we can.
Sergeant Dickson, do you believe that it's simply a matter of budget and you pushing for overtime which you can't get that has caused your transfer, or do you believe there is something else?
No, I haven't pushed for overtime. My men that work with me, we worked within our budget and we made a lot of changes, and we worked in our own time, and we did everything we could. We worked under budget, but when we were working under budget and we needed some overtime to investigate some extremely serious offences, a rape of a 4-year-old girl by an adult male person, and the serious sexual offences on a very young brother, well, we needed overtime then, because you can't have kids being sexually abused like that. You have to get out there, you have to get out quick and get that fella in custody before he rapes or murders or kills some little kid. And that's when we needed the overtime. That's what we wanted it for. And of course it wasn't available. It had been taken off us so that it could be used in other parts of the district to operate radar traps or whatever.
Why do you believe you're being transferred?
Well, I suspect that it is purely because I have stood up for my men. My first concern is always my men. I'm in charge of them. I'm in charge of their safety. And I've objected very strongly to cost-cutting effects that have put my men's lives in danger. And I think I'm being made an example of, to be shifted, and when I am, the big stick will be able to be applied to all the other men and say, well, pull your head in, or the same will happen to you as happened to Dickson.
If your transfer is an example, is it good news for crims throughout Queensland?
Yes, I think they might even give me a send-off.
I'd say that if I was an executive, if you like, of a large drug growing, marketing venture, I couldn't have achieved a better result for my endeavours than if I'd gone out and shot Ross Dickson personally.
Sergeant O'Gorman in Brisbane, Sergeant Dickson in Cairns, thanks very much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
And we'll be back with more in just a moment.